Welcome back to Higher Intelligence. I'm JC Bonilla, and today I am going solo. Not a guest this week, just me. I have 3 stories and something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. That's why I'm solo. I'm pulling back the curtain of me on the road because for the last few weeks, and I'm sorry I couldn't record last week, I've been traveling, keynoting, speaking in conferences, sitting in rooms with university presidents and tech leaders, and young people just starting to figure out what their careers are going to look like. So this episode is about what I've been hearing, what I've been saying, that feels relevant to everyone in this show. The second half is mostly going to be that. But the first one, as usual, the news. And today, we have 3 exciting stories. For story number 1, I'd like to take us back to Anthropic. Something that they've been building yet again, but they did not release. Internally, they're calling Cloud Mythos. Cloud Mythos. It's a 10 trillion parameter model. Can you imagine 10 trillion parameters? I mean, it's just insane. That's the first one on this scale. And it's incredibly good. In terms of benchmarks, think about it scoring 83.1 on something that's called the Cyber Gym, whereas the prior best model that it had was at 66. That's an incredible incremental jump. That's a category difference. Of course, not only is good, it's so good that they're not releasing, at least not broadly. Why? Because the speculation, because the idea that it's so incredibly nuanced that it's maybe doing things that we're not prepared to do. How did they find out that this is the situation? They have their own internal safety protocol. It's called the ASL4. And the software testing trigger this safety testing model. This comes from Anthropic's responsible scaling policy, some of the things that they're known for, and it means that the profile and the capabilities of the model possesses a level of risk that requires extraordinary controls before deploying. So Anthropic built their own stop signs, and guess what? They stopped. Think about what this means. This is the same company that launched Computer Use 3 weeks ago. This is the same company that has been shipping nonstop. This is the company that gave us Claude Opus, and I did a whole section of it. This is a company that gave us MCP for the entire industry. But for this one, they put it on the vault. This is my take, everybody. I keep on coming back to this. What does it mean for the past 2 years to be debating about what is AI safety? And are we overblowing this? This aspect of generative intelligence, and can we attain it? When do we start putting benchmarks, guardrails, and other restrictions to it? Well, whether the warnings are theater or not, what I think is important is that this company has arguably the best model that has existed, and is telling us straight in our face that they're not going to release it, that they have some internal protocols that it says this needs to be released. This needs not to be released. And everybody, I don't think this is not a PR move per se. That's a data point for me, that there's a capability curve that is not slowing down, but the governance of our frameworks are not taking place and not being shaped at the same speed. So right now, the answer is no. Models ahead, capabilities and governance below. By the way, in the reporting, I like to say that the control 50 companies that are accessing this is not a workaround. It's an actually structured evaluation. I understand many Fortune 500 banks, consultancy, and tech companies. Anthropic is watching and wanting these partners to watch how Cloud Mythos behaves in real enterprise environments with real data, real workflows, and specifically real edge cases before they make it a protocol. And that's actually the right move, right? But because what we are starting to know is that the frontier models are so ahead of us that we need to understand how they will behave in the public eye. Okay? So the institutions that needs to plan for this, us, higher educations, are basically expecting a version that may be ready. We don't want that. For my second story, I'd like to stay here within Anthropic as well. April 16th, we had the release of Claude Opus 4.7. Again, another incredible release, but this one came out to us. And the reason why I want to report is that this model is the agent model. What do I mean with that? Think about a 1 billion token context window with 128,000 maximum tokens of output. So an incredible intake and incredible outtake. High resolution for image. It can do 3.7 megapixels. And it's basically the first time any of the Claude models has done this in existence. Now, this is the important thing on this model. For those of you who experimented with Claude models, specifically agentic workflows, $10 later, $7 later, $100 later, you see that there's a budget that gets executed, and multiple dollars later, your models become very, very expensive. This model is different. You know why? Because it has a feature that is called a task budget. Claude gets a rough estimate of how many tokens will target this full agentic workflow, thinking about the calls, thinking about the outputs, thinking about the results. That's not a performance trick. That's actually a model that knows and senses the cost and knows how to scope itself before the work has started. This is a meaningful improvement in how reasoning and complex tool-dependent workflows are being shaped. It's a good thing to report that this is coming at the same cost of Opus 4.6. This is Anthropic saying we're building agent models and it's ready, and we're not changing it just for it. At the same time, by the way, and the same day, there's another drop from Anthropic, just very quickly commenting on it, that OpenAI did the same thing, by the way. This is called a cyber-focused AI model, specifically designed to fix software vulnerabilities. In other words, both companies right now enter the AI cyberspace simultaneously, and a competitive surface continues to expand. So what does this mean to me? For everyone building on Claude Stack, keep in mind, and this is something that is very important for us at Element, Opus 4.7 matters. The task budget feature is one that I find the most interesting, or the big takeaway for me here is the task budget. Why? Because when we model, we understand the shape that it has and how much it impacts our credit cards. And that's what basically causes the gap between an impressive demo and institutional deployment, right? Understand the predictability of running it. Also think about what it means to have an agent that now can hold the entire student life cycle of a conversation as a data point, and then carrying that out in its agentic workflows. That really changes the architecture of how we think about student experience and how we make them agentic. All right, now let's pivot from safety to competition. And this is about the race changing shape. Also, I'm very excited to tell you that in the third story, I'm not talking about Claude. I'm not talking about Anthropic. I'm not talking about OpenAI. I'm actually talking about Meta. I don't talk about Meta often, so it's exciting to have a conversation about Meta. Meta launched MuseSpark. This is their first frontier AI model that we know coming from the Meta Superintelligence Labs. Two important data points here. First, Meta is not known for frontier models that are commercial. They're known for their open source models. At the same time, the Meta Superintelligence Labs, it's the newest investment that not only 9 months ago, Zuckerberg hired Alexander Wang, the former CEO of Scale AI. This is the company that basically has done the training for most of the frontier labs. With the opportunity, he's all the infrastructure in the world that we have, probably one of the best computes, and let's come and build and put Meta in the map. So the Meta Superintelligence Labs has done this. A native multi-model, that means vision, reasoning, tool use, multi-orchestration, and it demolished the benchmarks in health. This means that it has 3 times better than Claude, than Gemini, than OpenAI, as it relates to healthcare output. The model was trained and curated alongside thousands of physicians. This is not a product then. This is actually a research commitment to our health. Now, again, but the story inside the story is that the Meta is pivoting from the open source champion of the world to this new version. This is what Llama looked like. This is how some of the claims to fame from Meta came to us, Llama 3, Llama 4, and the model was very simple. Let's put a model out there to the community that will come back to us much better and we stay relevant. But now, with MuseSpark, that feedback loop is closed, and the Meta Superintelligence Lab is saying, here's our model, and we're putting our flag in the frontier race. For those of you friends who are in the open source ecosystem, and if you actually build something around Meta, what does that mean? Well, it means that you may need to reconsider your tech stack, and specifically the tooling that goes around free and modifiable inputs to your proprietary ecosystems. That means that you may need to start rethinking about your AI Lendo strategy. All right, friends, 3 stories, 1 thread. The intelligence curve is accelerating in every direction. Capability, safety, demand deployment, and cost efficiency. All simultaneously, right? We're not in a holding pattern. We're in actually a compression zone. And that's the theme that we've been seeing this year. And the institutions that wait for that clarity before moving are going to find out that the window to shape their own path has already closed. Okay, friends, let's go into the second part of our conversation today. And this is not news. That's actually something slightly different. As I said before, the last few weeks I've been on the road. 3 conferences specifically, 3 different rooms, and each one gave me something worth to bring back here. So these are my field notes as a segment, if you will, and of specifically what I've said, what I've heard, and what I'm thinking about. Now, for the first room, the first conversation, think about something that is next generation or for the next generation, something honest and warm. This happens to be in Boise, Idaho, for the Future Hispanic Leaders of America conference. I had the opportunity to keynote for students just entering higher education, the 16, 17-year-old incredible souls, and what a wonderful opportunity. And think about what this incoming class is thinking. They're navigating college, or starting to navigate college, careers, in a world that is already being shaped by AI. So the talk I gave is called The Algorithm of You. The Algorithm of You. And it started with something I generally believe. Nobody follows a straight line. Again, last time I looked at an engineer practicing engineering or a musician practicing music or an English major practicing English as a field, right? It's highly unlikely. What we start seeing is success is not a straight line. It's actually a signal moving through noise. One of the opportunities that I had in this conversation, and for those of you who obviously you can tell in my accent, right? I grew up as an immigrant chasing the American dream through academics. And then I was in New York, post 9/11, and that totally changed my landscape. Of course, it changed the frequency in which my career was running on. And the noise, specifically post 9/11, thinking about what I was going to do with a career in engineering and semiconductors when there were no jobs, well, the noise almost won. But the signal was still there. And the key point here is that a well-designed algorithm does not break. It updates. Every detour, every setback, that's not a failure in the algorithm. That is the algorithm working as it should. The point that I wanted the students to walk away with, right, is that the AI today is another reshaping, another reconfiguration of the frequency in which your algorithm needs to run. Think about all the options, all the programs, all the paths. Everyone in your family has a different opinion. Even every recruiter has a new framework. The endless scroll of what you should be looking, it's not the problem. And with the AI accelerating everything, and how your career should be, should you even have a career, should you go to school or not, that's just basically the noise getting louder. The most radical thing, as I told everybody that they can think about and can do in this world, is to basically think about the complexity in your world and simplify the objective. Get a seat on the table, even in the room, even when the room is not designed for you. I use some examples on how the Anthropic labor market is being shaping, and this is a really important conversation that we're going to have here, because I don't want young people to start walking into a field afraid. The data shows that a redefined productivity is ahead, and a new set of opportunities will also come to us. AI is not erasing the future. Let me say that again. AI is not erasing the future for these students. It is rewriting the terms. And the students who understand that early, who learn to decode the signal in their own lives and move with steady forward motion on the basics, get a seat on the table, even when the room is not designed for you, as I said before, those are the students who are going to matter. So, to close this conversation, you don't need a perfect plan. What you need is a direction and the discipline to keep moving, and the algorithm adjust. So let's just do it. All right. That's my first conversation, and please let me know in your comments if you're thinking about careers, you're thinking about how this is shaping you and your family, and let me know how you feel about it, and there's data points you'd like to share. For my second conversation, my second stop actually is a room full with presidents and leaders, a bigger stakes, bigger framework. This happens to be at the American Association of Community Colleges in Seattle, Washington. Here, leaders who make institutional decisions at the AAC annual conference, where policy, strategy, and the future of America communities is discussed. I had the opportunity to lead multiple sessions, but this is basically the summary. I led something around the state of AI. And the frame that I use is very simple. The AI that everyone probably thinks about is the AI of 2023 and 2024, AI of talkers. But today, the AI is the AI of doers. And that's a shift that matters. It's a shift where everything changes on campus. A chatbot answers questions, but an agent completes workflows. Those are not the same thing. One is just software. The other is actual work. So think about AI as talkers, right? Conversational, answer generating, single turn, whereas AI is doers. Context hungry, skill equipped, rule following, workflow completing, self-supervising, and of course dynamic. I walked these leaders and presidents through what an actual AI agent is, as context hungry, as where context is super important, and libraries, and specifically through the lens of skills, which is the codification or workflow that allows the agents to reproduce work in a controllable environment with goals and rules. This was an important conversation because it allows us to understand the agentic workflow as self-monitoring, multi-orchestration, dynamic, with plans, adapting, and scaling in intelligence. But the part that generated probably the most conversation was when I said that the futures of skills have portability. What does that mean? If an agent and the skill that it produces, now if I am a student, I can come and say, I bring my own skills that I've created for my agents. Where do I plug them in? Think about what this means. A student or user coming and saying, where do I put in my skills? And how can I actually have my skill and my agents interact with yours? Custom GPTs were locked inside ChatGPT, but skills can be portable, should be portable, human readable with markdown folders. You build them once and use them across tools. Maybe not proprietary format, maybe vendor locked in, maybe not. But anyone can read them, anyone can edit them, and you can maintain this skill with no engineering requirement. Think about what this means for a community college. Think about what it means for any higher education. Right now, every AI tool that you build locks your logic inside that platform. You may have AI in your campuses through chatbots, and you may have agentic AI through very sophisticated tools like Element. But your workflows, your prompts, your institutional knowledge is trapped inside that software, and it cannot be exported. This emerging model that I propose, specifically as skills being portable, means institutions can own their AI logic, or the students will do that as well, in a way that you own your own data. That is not a technical detail. That's an institutional sovereignty on the question. And the presidents in the room understood that exactly what it meant. All right, friends. My last conversation, my last visit took me to San Diego. This was at the ASU GSV Summit. This is a big stage where we always get the opportunity to basically showcase the state of AI with other EdTech practitioners. This is 3 days, again, where AI, the art of AI and EdTech converge. There's multiple investors, there's founders, presidents, policymakers, an incredible room where the future of education gets debated and also funded. I had the opportunity to have multi-conversations, meetings, and also speak in a panel where the work of AI, and specifically agentic AI and Element, gets showcased. One of the things I want to bring here is the pattern that I've been seeing in our 300 and almost 400 client practice. And it's a pattern that I see across our institutions, as I said. And this is that schools have data. They have good intentions with that data. But what they don't have is the ability to come and use the signals, act on the signals that the data has at the pace that the students need. Let me say that again. Our partners, and the pattern that I'm seeing, is that the institutions have the data, but they don't have enough staff to action, detect, decode the signals, and action them at the pace that the students need. And this is, my friends, where agents thrive. An agent does not have that constraint, the one of pace or the resources. Think about it. When a first-generation software stops logging into a portal and misses a financial aid deadline, an agent notices in real time, reaches out in a personalized way, and routes them to the right human. And if that conversation gets complex, which it will be, because it's a deadline, we are academic institutions, we tend to have that complexity. Well, at that moment, the personalization scale kicks in, and that is someone that gets caught and helped as opposed to someone gets missed. That's the difference between a retained student versus a student who leaves or churns. And I don't want to also to stop on enrollment, right? I have the opportunity to look at outcomes across multiple students. We spoke about the student life cycle and again, how agents can maintain the presence, whether it's checking in 6 months or throughout the entire student life cycle, nudging alumni, back with micro-credentials and role changes. The loop never ends. And you're not just improving enrollment, you're also building longitudinal relationships in the institution, and that matters. The frame I use for this conversation and for my days in San Diego is that agents compress the time between signals and action to near zero. Every outcome improvement downstream is really just faster and more consistent in response, where the signals, that's the bread and butter of AI. It's what they're here, and we only need to act on them. So the question is, will AI replace advisors? Actually, that's the wrong framing. The question is, will your advisors will be empowered by AI? And I can say the same thing about recruiters, teachers. They're not teaching. They're not advising. They're not recruiting. We're spending most time on the adjacent task of what does it mean to be teaching? What does it mean to be a recruiting? So think about the recruiter. Spends more time putting together the event than the actual recruitment session itself. Think of the advisor. Spends more time bringing the student for a meeting than actually advising. So the question is, will your advisor, recruiter, or teacher be empowered by AI, or would they be left by it? And the leadership choice is not a technology, but an outcome for the students. So honestly, the thing that keeps me up at night right now is not the technology. It's actually the delta, the cultural delta between the practice of AI and where the technology is at. So my friends, to conclude what I experienced at ASU GSV, agentic workflows are here, and they give us the opportunity to come and scale the practices, the jobs that we have on campuses. Because at the end of the day, what's at stake is an outcome that impacts the life of the student. And the last thing that I spoke about during my conversations in San Diego with EdTech leaders, with founders, with higher education and academics, it's that there's a ton of AI that is failing. And the value of the proof of concept being small, starting with an idea, a problem that is practical and expensive. And we go at it, we fix it, and we actually scale from it. And the momentum is where it grows. It's where it's at. So pick your signal, run it for 30 days, come back with a number, and do it all over again. All right, friends, that's the episode today. And the news cycle that is moving faster than most organizations can absorb. I understand that. And also the rooms that I had the opportunity to be at. The through line for me, the algorithm adjusts. Whether you're a first-generation student finding your path, a community college president rethinking your institutional operating model, or an edtech company trying to build the right thing for the right reasons, the signal is here. The question is, how fast can you reduce the signal and act on it? I'm JC Bonilla, and this is Higher Intelligence. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to Higher Intelligence. This show is part of the Enrollify network, home to the largest collection of podcasts in higher education. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. You can find more podcasts, webinars, videos, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe to get new content sent directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the AI agent platform for higher education. Learn more at element451.com.